How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday morning, about 9:36 a.m. California time here. January 8th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe. We're going to adjust that just a little bit. Show the last 24 hours here on the map. Shows a 3.8 and a 1.7 up there into Alaska. 3.8 and the red flag hiding somewhere out here. Yeah, there we go. Across the area that had that 7-pointer here a couple days ago. Across the Nepal region, they're still seeing quite a bit of earthquake aftershock sequences there, including some smaller quakes. The USGS here only showing a handful due to the threshold that they use. That's 4.5 and above, even though it states right here. But occasionally they do include the 4-pointers, lower 4-pointers. Total tally for earthquakes out here, according to the USGS, about 24 earthquakes there, including the 5.1 or 7.1 for the largest. 5.1 is going to be the largest aftershock sequence. Things are tapering off there slightly, but I am noticing some further activity up north late last night. I've been noticing a kind of a trail of earthquakes out here. If you look, if I include the last week here, some movement to the west here, away from the plate boundary. And we're still getting some activity away from the plate boundary and further up north, which means that there's, I think, some adjustment further about ready to take place here across that area. Going to have to watch that because it's looking pretty active out there. That 5.7 from late last night, way up into China, away from the plate boundary. For the rest of the globe here, let's see what we got for the last 24 hours here. I believe it. Yeah, it's going to be that 5.7 in China. So far today, though, after midnight, looks like a 5.0 coming in to the Reconnaissance Ridge out here. Part of the oceanic rift zone. That's been fairly active out here as well. Iceland's had a number of earthquakes recently. Kind of looks like they downgraded that 5-pointer from yesterday to a 4.3. Either way, activity continues out here across the area. Let's check out California here. I know these guys are having to deal with some big-time wildfires down there around Malibu and Santa Monica area, and a couple other newer fires started overnight as well. We'll check that out here after the earthquake and space weather information. As far as earthquake activity goes, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot happening here in terms of any elevated movement there across Southern California. Just generally small microquake activity. There was a number of earthquakes here showing up on the China Lake Station. That's going to be here at the bottom. I'm seeing a couple of smaller quakes there. In that area sits up here, so some smaller quake activity, but really nothing big for now. Roughly the same here for Northern Cal, although a little bit of movement stirring up underneath Lake Almanor. Had a little swarm of activity here just after midnight. I'll bring that up here. Looks like we had about 4 earthquakes within about an hour time period. It's weird how recently all these little earthquakes have been occurring within an hour or so of each other, and then it'll move on to a different area. So there's definitely quite a bit of strain out here. But Lake Almanor, a couple earthquakes there, 2s and including a 3-pointer. Underneath this region, there's a fault system that goes directly underneath the Lake Almanor area. Newly discovered one here within the last couple years or so. Nothing big going on there for now, but still seeing some somewhat escalated activity out here across Northern California. Inland movement there across the Sierra Mountains. Sierra Nevada Mountains, I should say. Also into Nevada over here from yesterday. A couple more earthquakes inland. This activity here from yesterday, but it, almost looks like there's following these events there across Northern California, it added further strain inland here, off of the plate boundary, obviously, but things are looking a little bit elevated here in a couple different regions because of the strain out here. Tremor map's been a little spotty, not a whole lot of elevated tremor, but I still think things are on edge out here in terms of larger scale potential. A couple smaller quakes across the Cascades up in Washington, but really nothing big. Some explosion, it looks like, here off the coast of Lincoln Beach. Not for sure what they're trying to accomplish out there, but it is offshore. And yeah, not for sure what's going on with that. Normally, you got some mine explosions and whatnot that they perform out here periodically, but that's the first time I've seen something offshore. Interesting. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up here. One earthquake from yesterday down here across Little America. I am going to double check the Yellowstone overview here real quick, see what we have for earthquake activity. Looks like there was at least one or two earthquakes here in the last couple hours across the west side of the park, but really nothing showing up on that map there from the USGS, but really nothing big. I mean, it's obviously if there was some big time activity taking place, it would show up on various stations there in a big fashion, but it's not. Oil fields out here of Texas getting hit still. New Madrid seismic zone, really nothing major going on out there. One little lonesome earthquake out in South Carolina, little 1.9. So if we look at the earthquake 3D globe here, see which areas are underneath the hotspot regions here today as far as elevated activity, not necessarily a hotspot in terms of plate tectonics, but let's see here. There's a little bit of adjustment here overnight, actually early this morning, 4.8. I was expecting some larger scale activity out here following yesterday's deep events. Let me show you guys a couple earthquakes out here from yesterday. This one, 5.3, and then further up north, pretty deep earthquake as well. That generally adds strain out here across this area of the plate boundary. Today, we had looks like a 4.8 in that area of the Kumano Ridge just south here. And that's the subduction zone that the Japanese government here put out a megaquake warning for. That's under quite a bit of strain. That's coming up on the regular interval here of large ruptures in between that time period. So we should see something here, potentially. But it makes sense here with all the deep activity here recently. Putting the further strain out there in this region. Not for sure why the USGS is not reporting it, but it is there on the EMSC model, the globe, for a 4.8 here just at the southern end of the Kumano Ridge. Some further activity up around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. And the USGS is showing this earthquake, 79 miles deep here into this area, early this morning for a 4.7. New Zealand, a couple more threes down there across North Island area. Aside from that, got some fours out there around Solomon Islands eastward along the plate boundary near Vanuatu as well. But yeah, look at all this activity migrating north here. China, even further up north. There's been a handful of interesting earthquakes away from the plate boundary here, following that 7-pointer a couple days ago. So quite a bit of strain and adjustment going on up there right now. The Ethiopia rift boundary, not seeing anything showing up here right now as far as the latest activity goes. Well, I was already over here. Most of this activity here from yesterday looks like the last one there, 5.3. So we'll see what happens today. See if things stir up out there. Pretty decent amount of earthquake activity here across the Iceland area southward. So fairly active all over. We'll definitely watch this and see how it plays out today. Space weather activity taking a little back seat here in terms of stronger flaring. Really nothing significant going on. The flare threat out here has dropped a little bit from 3947. That's going to be this area right here that has been actively flaring in the last few days with numerous M flares and a couple X flares in there as well. That has calmed down now that it's directly facing Earth. Go figure. So really not expecting too much from that area unless it does decide to grow rapidly. But overall flare threat, 15% chance for X flare, M flare at 55%, C flare at 99%. No major roars there in the forecast there for now, folks. Things pretty quiet. And we'll take a look here at the next 5 close approach asteroids here. See if anything's headed to the planet. That's all we need, right? 2025 starting off with a bang. And looks like no asteroids to worry about for right now. 63-foot house size. That's a pretty good size one, but that's over 600,000 miles away. Aside from that, millions of miles away there for the majority. All right, so let's look at, let me refresh this, make sure I got the most recent information here. This big fire down there across the Malibu area and some of these super rich communities. Beautiful homes up there, by the way. I was just down here a couple months ago investigating earthquakes swarming out there on the Malibu coast fault, and also the landslide activity down here across the Palos Verdes Estates area. Ate at a restaurant down here called the Real Inn. I don't think that made it, from what I hear, and it's not verified, but there's a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of stuff burning down here right now. The latest information here from the Watch Duty app states this at just under 3,000 acres here. This big fire right here. That has probably grown because I remember that number last night. There's no way it stayed at this level. It's still burning out there. If you look at the region, we'd have to back out and maybe see a different camera. This one looks fairly active. There's still some very active conditions out there. That's looking north. Of course, this is looking south here towards the Malibu area, or the Pacific Coast Highway there, Highway 1, towards Santa Monica area further south. Very active conditions prevailing, and it's still quite windy. Here's the wind flow and the directional arrows, kind of pushing that further along the west here. Now, this entire area here in kind of the darker red or darker brown color is the evacuation orders. Evacuation warnings here in the yellow. So all of this area has, they're just making sure everyone's trying to get out of there. A lot of people sticking around. I'm sure you guys seen those videos on social media of people's homes literally on fire, or their neighbors' homes on fire, and they're filming it from their house. It's very scary and very dangerous at the same time. But unfortunately, as I mentioned here a couple days ago regarding the potential windstorm out here, that anything that was going to take off would be super deadly and probably historic out here in terms of fires. And that, unfortunately, that came to be. Current, as I mentioned here, current fire acres burned here shows just about 3,000, but I read somewhere it's just about 5,000 now. There's no containment on it right now. Let me see here, go back. If we zoom in, this has a little bit more detailed view of the fire perimeters and possible areas burned. There is still several regions out here that are not, it doesn't look like they've been affected, at least far as updated here on the fire perimeter map. But when you go and add the layers up here from this site, it's really cool. You can look at hotspot layers and whatnot. We're going to put both of these on here, and this is technically hotspot images being picked up by satellite imagery. And that's not good, because that looks like that fire potentially has engulfed some of those areas that were outside that fire perimeter that I just showed you. Continuing westbound here towards Malibu Beach. And that the Real Inn that I ate at down there, Mimi stopped there for some decent food. I don't know if it was further this way. So, it's hard to say. These images here are updated a couple times a day, so it's possible this could be out of date, or it could be behind. But the general view here is not a good one. Working its way down south here towards the Santa Monica area. Looks like there's even some hot spots down there, but let me get rid of those. Mandatory evacuation orders here in the red again, yellow across this area. This is just entering into the Santa Monica area down here. Hopefully, with that wind, it should keep it out of that area. But they do have that evacuation warning just in case things go haywire or get worse. I don't know how much worse it can get down there, but these are big time, multi-million dollar homes down there, and it doesn't matter if it's $100,000 home or $2 million home. It's sad to see, and it's definitely not good. It's life disruptive. One thing I noticed when I was driving down there across the Malibu area here a couple months back is that how densely brushed the area was, heavily vegetated. But I'm a nature guy, so I love being out in the nature and surrounded by trees and forests and lush, thick environments. But it was so dry down there, and we were thinking, man, if something ever takes off down here, it's going to be a bad one, and it's pretty scary. So that is just one area right now. The Palisades fire, I think that's how you pronounce it. A couple more fires started up last night. There's the Eaton fire, which has grown tremendously as well. That is just under 2,000 acres, but I think that's a little bit higher. Let me go over here and show you guys the Eaton fire. Mandatory evacuation orders there in the red. You can see it's covered all over the place here. Good portion of the area. Evacuation warnings there in the yellow. This one does not have a fire perimeter map, but the winds are kind of blowing down slope here, pushing it towards this area on the lowlands region, lowland area. But if you look, the winds are not quite as strong across this area, Pasadena and whatnot. It's going to be higher and stronger up here across the elevated terrain. Satellite imagery view of this area, looking down towards that region. Oops. Bring this back up. Oh, there, it's right here. Feels like a Monday. So that is, a very bad day down there. Still continuing to burn out there for this fire, which is called the, back out of here, MT Disappointment. That's an odd name for that. The Eaton fire here. Pretty significant. Looks like the camera area survived that fire as it blew through. Still some hot spots out there. You don't really see a whole lot of stuff going on in terms of firefighters out there, but I know they're heading out there. There's, from what I hear, actually some of the fire hydrants out there ran out of water, which is just, I couldn't even imagine being a firefighter and having no water. Pretty scary. So some big time fires going on, folks, with those two. There is another one that started up here called the Hearst fire. Just seems to be almost a circle here surrounding the area, mainly up the northern regions, not so much down south here, but got to remember those peak wind gusts there, 70, 80 miles per hour last night. We're up around here. I heard somewhere maybe even 100 miles an hour recorded last night. So we got three big fires. The Hearst fire up here, about 500 acres. That let's see what that looks like here. Number of cameras. Man, they got a lot of cameras here. That's still at 500 acres, 0% containment. That's kind of blowing off in this general direction. Evacuation warnings, mandatory orders here in the red again. Just they got their hands full down there in Southern California. I think the biggest one right now is going to be this area down here. It's way above that number, 2,900 acres. It's got to be because that was the number last night, and I know it's had to have grown. And that's sitting at 0% containment. Yeah, just not good, man. Not good. Some beautiful areas down there. I'm glad I got to eat at the Real Inn. Some pretty good food. So yeah, a nightmare scenario unfolding down there. Something like we haven't seen in a long time. And let's go ahead and check out the. Oh, look at this fire! Got another fire up north here. Unfortunately, this filled in. Small fire down south, but the big ones are up north here. Let's check out the wind conditions as far as the exact weather goes down there. Still pretty windy as of right now across this area. Mainly, well, Los Angeles actually has some wind kicking up as well. A little bit of sporadic activity with the wind direction. That's not good. That's always of concern when it comes to firefighting. Still got some wind gusts up there in the higher terrain, about 60, 70 miles per hour. Off here around Malibu, 43 mile per hour gusts. Stronger offshore, it looks like, up around 60. That is expected to die down later tonight. As you can see, as we go into tonight's time period, things start to diminish. So hopefully, these guys can get a handle on the extreme conditions. That have been taking place down there. So pretty scary, folks. Let me tell you. It's been so dry down there. Just Southern California hasn't seen a drop of rain. And it's been an odd pattern, but during the La Nina years, most of the time it's Northern California northward that gets the precipitation. Sometimes even Southern Oregon northward that gets the majority of the precipitation in the wintertime. El Nino pattern normally hits Southern California with some sufficient rainfall. But this year, ooh, man, I don't think they've received a drop of rain. Looking at the extended forecast here, shows some severe weather potential, snow and whatnot for Texas. They're still looking like it's going to be a little bit of snow over there, maybe around Dallas-Fort Worth area. But if it snows, it's going to be actually, it looks like a lot there. Some deeper snow across northern Texas as we head towards the end of the week. And if you look at the West Coast here, there's really not a whole lot of hope there. That almost looks like a summertime pattern out here across the West Coast. A lot of portion of the country in the summertime, you get the thunderstorms and heavy rain. That's mainly limited, northern, southern plains, central plains, eastern portion of the country. West Coast out here, we're dependent on our rainfall season, which is in the wintertime. And December was pretty wet for us in Northern California, but we're starting to dry out now. It's supposed to be almost 70 degrees. The ground's drying out. Southern California hasn't seen a drop of rain, and it doesn't even look like anything's in the forecast here. Here's a total accumulated precipitation run. Dry, specifically over California. A little bit down there in extreme Southern California, but that's still a ways out there. And really not all that helpful. So things are not looking good here for fire season. Fire season in January? Goodness. Most of the time that happens in summertime, but pretty crazy, folks. Anyway, hopefully they get those fires under control there. It's very sad to see, all the homes and just people's lives being disrupted, whether you have money or not. It shouldn't matter. That's the point, is that could be loss of life down there. It's not good. It's destruction. And definitely a beautiful area. Hopefully they get those things under control. All right, seismograph stations here. A couple earthquakes on China Lake still showing up. Yellowstone, one earthquake there on Yellowstone as well. Aside from that, folks, live stream is up and running. I'll be out here kind of watching things throughout the day today as far as earthquake activity goes. Hope everyone has a good Wednesday, and make sure you stay safe and take care. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening. I think I'm going to go out and maybe mow the grass in January. Oh, goodness. All right. Take care. Have a... anything major going on out in Hawaii? Doesn't look like it, at least for now. All right, have a good day, folks. We'll catch you later.